There we go. Perfect. Well, thank you for coming. My name is Tom Hardy. I'm the Open Educational Resources Librarian for Vogler Library and also for Merrill Library. Um, and this is a introductory, slightly advanced, what I'm calling OER essentials, finding, evaluating, and um, adopting OER. So, what we are going to do is kind of go over a little bit of how you might want to find um, OER and how that might uh, work when you are developing your classes. So, I'm going to share my screen a little bit, um, but this is kind of I'm hoping that you might be able to follow along so that you can kind of get a feel for using the resources. So I'm actually going to share my screen if I can. Oh, there it is. Sure. All right. Okay. So this is kind of your first stop for that I would suggest for a lot of people, and that is the Open Educational Resources Library Guide that Fogler Library made for UMaine libraries. Um, it kind of gives you an overview as to some places you can go to find resources, and it also has um, my contact information, uh, a great picture I took of my mom's cat, uh, but there's also some information about the OER Award, which is a grant project that we are starting at UMaine Libraries and is available um, to all teaching faculty. Um, but when you're getting started and you kind of want to know more about how you might find things, or if you're having difficulties, this getting started with OER page I crafted to try to give you as many resources as possible. It has my contact information as well as the contact information of Casey Coons, who is our open scholarship librarian. If you ever have questions about publishing, open access, anything like that, they are a great resource. Um, but there's a couple of links for adoption guides. Something I'll talk about a little bit is Creative Commons, and they have some requirements on how you attribute. And this tool developed by Open Washington is a great little like you put in what license they have, and it will give you a little blurb that you can add onto any web page or book or anything you're using that might have a attribution requirement. Some toolkits. If you're interested in kind of how you might engage with OER for in your teaching, there's a couple of links for that as well, and some uh, overview of the licenses. But this best bets corner is kind of where I'm hoping to lead you to. If we want to know about, if you're interested in replacing your textbook entirely, there is a couple of great places to start. Um, OpenStax is one of probably the premier one that I hear most people using. Actually, Biology 100 here on campus is using the OpenStax textbook for biology. They've been using it for several years at this point, and they're mostly happy with it. But the fact that but there's that's kind of the thing that you get with a lot of OER is that maybe they're not perfect, but the fact that they are created in such a way that you can change them, work a little bit with them, allows you to customize the course and make that book, that textbook that is free, exactly what you want. And that's kind of the freedom versus something like, getting something from uh, Rutledge that you can't change. It's immutable. um, BC Open Collection is another great resource. British Columbia, our Canadian friends, are they did so much work with open educational resources. We're actually going to open all of these, so I'm just going to open them all up on here. Um, and they did so much great work. As you can see, they have, if I click on all, you know, mostly what you will see if you just look at it, there's a lot on sciences and math, usually because those tend to be a lot of the textbooks that are very expensive and also tend to be pretty like the information doesn't change a whole lot. So they are able to kind of craft it in such a way that these textbooks or these resources will be very easy for academics to put out and also to use versus something like social sciences, which might have a little bit more um, nuance or something that requires a little bit extra from the faculty perspective. Um, but there's still plenty out there, and and it continues to grow, and that's kind of what we are trying to do here at the university is prompt or allow or incentivize faculty members to engage with OER, to adopt it in their courses, create their own OERs so that we can kind of contribute and get not only more free resources out there, but also a greater variety. We have faculty members from art, from education, from engineering who are all interested and want to work with us. So we're hoping to extend that forward. OpenStax probably has the most textbook like things you're going to find. You can actually buy these physically. They do offer physical bound editions, but the online versions are totally free. And then you can see it has everything from computer science to humanities, nursing, especially for healthcare. And this is just kind of understanding what is out there. There's also OER Commons, which is kind of a little bit different. You can see there's a lot of buttons on here. um, but you can kind of sort by your subject area or your educational use for what I would tell faculty if they're trying to find OER is I would start with college or upper division or graduate professional if you are looking for something for grad courses. If you're teaching a intro course, you might actually find some things helpful to you if you do community college and grade 12, just because there's a little bit of the um, the difference between the highest level uh, you know, primary ed versus higher ed is not that different. So you might find something that works for you that you could add to make it higher ed or upper division. And then you could just hit, search on this, and you can find any. You can see there's 1,000 results for things that have that level. And you can kind of narrow that down more by saying, oh, I want, I have educational standards I am working with, or say I have a material type in mind. I want a textbook. You can narrow that down and find 54 results. This is an anthropology textbook on uh to, on race and ethnic studies, or on the history of some teaching resources in world history. So OER Commons is a little bit less aesthetically pleasing, but it has a lot of good information and good resources. Um, University of, if you're looking for upper division, University of Minnesota has an open textbook library that also has some really great um, resources for all sorts of uh, things. So if I wanted to look for, say, uh, you know, biology, you can see that they still have the OpenStax textbooks here. So there's a little bit of overlap, but then you can see, you know, this textbook or psychology as a biological science, and you can see that there's all these other, and you can see that these ones have reviews, which will kind of lead us into the second aspect of this presentation, talking about assessing. When we can go back. There's some other things if you're looking for things that aren't quite textbooks, if you're looking for interactive materials, if you're looking for videos, audio lectures, slides, that kind of thing. OER Commons also does this, but there's other things such as the Open Course Library or Marlowe that allows you to search for other things as well. Um, when you're talking about uh, assessing OER for content, or for which ones are good for your course, I actually had a conversation with my oldest sister, who is a teaching faculty member at another institution, and she said, "Oh, I'm interested in OER, but I don't know where to start, and I don't know which ones are good." And that's definitely a problem of uh, quantity. There's a lot to go through, and if you don't know where to start, it might be overwhelming. Under our textbook replacements, you which is another tab on our LibGuide, we do have a uh, collections with transparent evaluation criteria, which gives you a couple of links to places that have, if they are, if they have reviews, if they have uh, peer review, um, like OpenStax are peer reviewed. Milne open textbooks are peer reviewed. As I showed with the Minnesota Open Textbook Library, they have reviews on the platform. So you can kind of, these are, educators who have used the books or have read the books for content and said these are textbooks that meet our criteria, meet our evaluation. So you can feel a little bit better about those versus, going through, um, say, the like OER Commons, where you might say, oh, there's a lot of good stuff in here, but there might be a lot of stuff that I'm not so sure on, without having to go through it myself. So that can those these links can kind of give you a little bit of an edge to get kind of get your feet rolling, as it were. Um, we also have, as I said, we also have multimedia. Um, but the real thing with OER is kind of understanding what the content, and kind of, so a lot of it's going to be reading the book, unfortunately, or reading the reviews and saying, okay, well, I really like, so let's say I want to go into here. I have a background in world history, so I'm just going to click. So like, I want to read. I want to look at this book. I can, go through here. I can look at the authors. I might know some of these authors just by reading them and saying like, okay, well, like they have authors who have contributed from uh, University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, Hanover College, but like a lot of colleges and universities across the country who have contributed. I could look up their work and see like, are these people that I believe it to be scholarly in the field? That's a great way to start. Um, and then you could also just look at the, I want to view online. No, go to my book. And you can say, okay, well, like, I'm looking at this, and I can say, I can, go to early humans and go to Neolithic Revolution and say, okay, well, I'm reading through here, and everything seemed like Göbekli Tepe is a mostly recent discovery. That's great, and you can see actually down here that has uh, the Creative Commons license as a part of it, and you can kind of, you can be like, okay, like this seems to be recent. It seems to have accurate information that my students will be able to digest, and that might be something I'm interested in using for my course. Uh, or you could go, you could say, oh, like this seems interesting. I can view this, and I can go, okay, well, is some Boise State University. I could read the book and kind of, sorry, read book, and I could learn more about how everything is laid out. And you also get a feel for how what's the user experience for your students, because that's a big question. Um, you could have the freest, most easily findable textbook in the world, but if it's a bad experience for students to read, they're not going to read it. So that's a great way for you to kind of get a feel, is just kind of flip through the pages, as it were. See if this is kind of what you are interested in, and moving and going from there. Um, you could find, and if nothing you find is really hitting what you're interested in, send me an email. Say, hey, I'm looking at getting at, including OER into my course, but I'm not really finding the things I'm looking for. Or I have this question about, I want to use this resource, but I don't understand the license, or I don't understand if it actually is OER or if it's another thing. Can you help me? I've answered those questions, and I'm happy to do that more. Um, we also want you to feel empowered to, you know, make make the decision. You are the educator that has the subject area knowledge, and that's kind of that's the thing that we're wanting you to take away from this, is that we're hoping that you um, feel not only empowered but inspired by this, by what we're offering, what we are able to help you with and help your students with. If you find a book that you are interested in, again, like how do you actually use it? So, say I want to use this textbook, this world history textbook. I can see that there's this license down here. It tells me that it's a CC, it's an attribution 4.0 international license. I can go back to like getting started with OER and say, okay, well, there's a Creative Commons license attribution. It tells me that I need to provide a link to the license and indicate if changes were made. Easy. Then I can say, I can go up here to this attribution builder. I can click on that and say, okay, well, I see that there's an attribution 4.0 license. I could get URL and the title and everything. I could hit create and it would create a little text and you could copy the HTML if you're adding it to something like a website, or if you're putting it into the coded end of your course shell or something like that. This would be that's an option for a way for you to actually engage with it and actually get it into and still and follow the attribution requirements, everything like that. That can be confusing for people because OER is a little bit is similar but slightly different to standard open access, and mostly that's for the fact that OERs can be taken and kind of cut up and reused and mixed with all of these other things depending on what the license is, versus a standard open access which allows you to read it and get that content for free, but might you still have a lot of the same copyright restrictions that come with traditional publishing. So this is that's something that can trip people up and can be kind of um, difficult. And also, we have this British Columbia campus made this great OER faculty toolkit that is an attribution um, license, which gives you kind of everything you might want to know about how to use it in. So like I can hit adoption and that gives you a little bit of like a you know it gives you more resources on evaluating, on if you want to adopt it, how you're going to actually give it to your students. Do you want to um import it directly um, into Brightspace, or if you want to provide a link to it, something like that. There's lots of different options for you, and usually that is dictated by the license. Which, again, if you're interested in using OER in your course, you can either look at what the LibGuide has to say about that, about those licenses, or you can always email me and my or Casey and say, I have this book that I have the license to, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. We can help work you through that. Um, and there's also usually there'll be ways for you to kind of get into contact with uh, the author or something like that to let them know, like, hey, I have, because some authors like to know the numbers of people who are using their book, or if like um the publisher is like accessing that data, but there's usually no requirement for that, so don't worry about it too much. But sometimes I know I know as an author, it's always nice to say like to see, oh, somebody read my thing. uh, so always feel free for that. Um, Other than that, I want to plug again the Open Educational Resources Grant Award. Um, you still have until February 2nd to submit a proposal. If you have any questions about it, or if you want to see if your project is something that we would be interested in, please let me know. I've had some meetings with faculty members who are kind of on the fence, so I've talked to a lot of people about it so far. Um, but there's lots of options, and we are working with, we have some faculty members on our committee who will help select. So it won't be strictly from the library, it'll be from people on campus as well who say, okay, like this is a project that we think is worth funding. Um, so that is somewhat the long and the short of how to find OER, how to engage with OER, and how to integrate it into your course. I'm going to end the recording, but I'm going to answer some questions if you have any.